Hey there, programmers. Welcome to JLancer. And on today's tutorial, I'd like us to discuss more about classes and objects. So, object-oriented programming, which is PGG2, yeah. Okay, so I came across this question like, what's the difference between a class and a structure? So, in C++, a class and a structure are completely identical, so they're basically the same thing, but they do have certain few differences. So a structure by default, it defaults to public access, and a class defaults to private. So in some sense, a structure is not secure and it cannot hide its implementation details from the end user, while a class is secure and it can hide its programming and designing details. So when you define attributes, for example, let's say we have a program like this one, a test program. So you have a class test, you declare your attribute, but you don't specify like this which access specifier you're using, like public or private. Then that will default to private because this is a class. So if you try to compile this, try to change the value of x in the main, it won't work because x is private by default. So that's a class. Then if you have a structure, code might be like this. So now we have a struct keyword, meaning this is a structure. Then we do the same thing, int x, so we declare x without specifying the access specifier. Then when you try to change the value of x in your main, it works fine because x is public by default. So that's the main difference between a class and a structure. Security. So classes allows you to encapsulate your data where the user it's not visible to the user. Okay, now let's start with our tutorial. I'd like us to do a practical example to try and understand what classes and objects are. Okay, I prepared an example, but before that, let's briefly discuss what a class is and what an object is. I'm sure as you've all heard that a class is like a blueprint. It's a blueprint or a template. Then an object is an instance of a class. Like, do you all get that? Like, what does that actually mean? We have a blueprint and we have the actual instance. Everything in real life, it's almost like that. You have a blueprint of something, you have a blueprint of a house, then you have an actual house. You have a fruit, that's a blueprint of a fruit. Then you have an actual fruit, an apple, a banana, a mango. So if you think of it in another sense, a class is some kind of a category of something that can describe a lot of things which could be different in their attributes. So another example, we have a car. A car could be a blueprint of what? Of objects like Volvo, Audi, Toyota, Hummer. I'm sure you get it by now. So how do we code that? Like how do we implement that? Well, C++ developers saw that using existing data types like integers, double and strings. It's not enough for programmers to build something visual. Like, you can't build a real world thing using those variables only. So using classes, you can create your own data types. So classes are user-defined data types. So you define your own data type. You define what your class does, which attributes they hold, which methods they do. Okay, I hope you get the theoretical part of it. Let's start coding. Firstly, we'll need to include our directives. So we'll include IOStream for input output. Then we'll need namespace std. Okay, let's build our class. And this example will be about a movie. So we'll create a class of a movie. So our movie is our class. Then we'll have objects of the actual movies, like different movies like Avengers Endgame. Whatever movie you like, you can store on this. So a movie, when you think of a movie, you could think of like different attributes. Okay, the movie has a name, it has the duration, and the publisher. So that's what differentiates the different movies. So those are the objects. So in our class, we could store the attributes or methods they share. Okay, enough talk. Let's name our class movie, as we've said. Okay, so our class movie will have a couple of attributes. Already prepared these. So private, in private we'll have string name or title rather. String title. Release date, publishing company, and the duration. So these are the 4 attributes that will describe our movie. So when we have an example of a movie, we'll definitely have the title of that, the date it was released, the duration or how long the runtime, and the publishing company. Okay, so for public, I'm sure by now you know what these are: private and public. Before you even start building a class, you must understand what these do. So in our public, first things first, we could have our construct. So non-parameterized. Then our overloaded constructor. Okay, so this constructor will just set these values or initialize them to empty strings and duration to 0. Then this overloaded constructor will initialize the attributes, using the input values. So the values we provide in our constructor initially when we instantiate the object, then they will be automatically assigned to these attributes. Okay, so let's implement it. We'll use outside implementation. As you all know, first we have the class name, so the name of our class, movie. Then we use scope resolution operator. these two colons, then the name of the function we are trying to implement. So now we are trying to implement the constructor. So our constructor will just initialize name equals to empty string, release date empty string, company empty string, duration 0. These values will be initialized if we just instantiate the object without supplying any inputs. So you'll see when we implement the object. Okay, so our overloaded constructor, or our parameterized constructor, here's the implementation. So same thing, we have the class name, then the scope resolution operator saying that inside this class we wanna implement this method. So what? The movie method. The first parameter is the name, the second one release date, the third one company, and the last one the duration. So using these values, we'll just apply these. So our name will be equals to M, release date RD, company C, duration and D. Okay, I hope you all follow at that point. Okay, since well our attributes are private, we'll need some kind of methods, public methods, where we'll be able to get the data from those attributes and also to change the data. So we'll need our setter methods and getter method. So let's start with setter. So I already prepared these four methods. Okay, that works. So our first setter method is a void, so meaning it doesn't return anything. We are just trying to change our attributes. So set move will be used to set the move. So as you can see, we have the same parameters or arguments as our overloaded construct. So using the provided values, will initialize there. So we'll just set the move. Void set release date. So we are changing the release date. So whatever input we get as a string, it's our date. So we take that date, we'll change this attribute, the release date attribute. Okay, set name, same thing. So we'll use this method to set the name using the input string provided. Set company, set duration, same thing. We are just repeating ourselves. So here we are receiving an integer. So whatever number we are gonna receive here, that will be our duration. So we'll store these in minutes. So 180 minutes. Maybe we could also add a method to convert that to hours. But yeah, for now we'll just receive the number, store it in duration. Okay, now let's implement these methods. Let's implement our setter methods. Okay, so the first one, set move. Our return type, it's void, so we are not returning anything. We are trying to access the set movie method. the set movie method inside our movie class. So we use scope resolution double colons, meaning in this movie we wanna set these values using these ones. So same thing, we're just repeating ourselves. That's just copy and paste. So set movie, we set this. The second method will implement the set release. So return type void, movie, scope resolution, set release date. So we receive one parameter this time, which is the release date. So it's in string and our release date is a string, so we just equate them together. Easy, right? So same thing with name, company, and duration. They are all void. So as you can see the relationship here, certain methods always don't return anything, so they are almost always void. So set name, you are receiving n, a string, then you equate it to name. Whatever you receive, store it to company. Set duration, store it to duration. Okay, now let's move on to our getter methods. Okay, so getter methods, what are they used for? Well, they are used for receiving or getting data from your attributes. Remember, we encapsulated our variables, so these attributes are private, meaning anywhere outside the class you can't do anything. So you can't get the data, you can't set the data. So using the setter methods, we were able to set the data. Now using getter methods, we are gonna get the data. Okay, so I already prepared this for getter methods. Yeah. So as you can see the difference, getter methods always return something because you are getting some kind of data, so you must have a return type. As you can see for get name, we have string, get release. You don't actually need to claim these, like using the data type of your attributes, that's the return type, so you just copy that. So get name, string. I hope this doesn't confuse you guys, like this is possible. You can just, if they are of the same data type, you can just name them on the same line. So they are all strings. So string, get name, string, get release date, string, get company. Then int, get duration, because our duration is in minutes, which is in integer numbers. We return int. And one other thing, getter methods normally don't require any parameter, so you don't need any parameter because you are just receiving data from the class. You are not giving any data. So as you can see that we have nothing. Easy, right? Okay, let's move on to our implementation. Like, how do you implement those getter methods? Well, it's easy as ABC, guys. The same thing you did with your setter methods, that's what you do with your getter methods. You just change the return type, class name, scope resolution. So this is common, as you can see. all around, meaning you're accessing from this class. Which class? The movie class, the get name method. Then you want to return the name. You want to return release date. Get release date method, release date. Get company, return company. Get duration, return duration, which is integer, string, string, string. Okay, moving forward. We could have another method for displaying all our data. So let's just name this display. Well, it's a string, so we'll return a string in display form. Okay, now let's move on to our in main. How do we instantiate the object? How do we use our class? Now that we got the blueprint, how do we use it? Like, how do we use it to build something we can see, something we can visualize? Okay, our basic structure. Int main. Okay, now guys, this is the most important part of this tutorial actually. Like, how do you instantiate your objects and how do you use those methods? You know, we can implement, we can define, we can build our class, but how do we use that class to do something meaningful for us? Okay, that's where objects come in. So using our movie class, as you can see now in our int main, the movie class is now a data type, meaning we can create objects using it. Like, objects are like variables. Think of them as variables. Like, if you have a string variable, that string variable also has methods. You can use the length method or the size method to get the size of the string. So those methods are all encapsulated in the string data type. So they're all pre-built for you to use there. Same as int, double, all of the data types, they are basically classes. So here we defined our own data type. So we defined our own class, which is movie. So now in int main, we can use that movie to create objects. Now they are kind of like variables. So let's name this one the first one movie 1, or rather obj movie 1. So it's an object instance of movie 1. Well, because of our implementation now, we have a lot of room to play around. Like, we can just instantiate without supplying parameters, because we define the implementation of a construct. Immediately when we do this, that constructor is automatically called. So this code runs, meaning our name, release date, company, and duration are now empty and 0. But if we provide parameters, we'll need 4 parameters, as we've said there. So we could provide these parameters, and then we'll have our movie. Okay, so I'll just instantiate the object without actually providing any parameters, because I want us to use these set methods, the setter methods. Okay, so movie one, let's start with that. Let's set the movie. So obj movie one, that's our object. So using this object, we can now access all the public methods of the movie class. As you can see, the company duration, all the attributes are in red, so they are private. We can access these green ones, so the public methods. Okay, let's use set movie. Set movie, the first parameter is the name. So name, okay, that's our first movie. Avengers Endgame. The second parameter, the date or the release date, April 22nd, 2019. The third parameter, the company, fourth, and duration. Okay. So what the heck did we just do? Like, this might look confusing to someone who don't know objects and classes. Well, that's actually the simplest form, like the dot notation. Using the instantiated object or the object you created, you can access all the private, all the public methods of your class. So now we accessed the set move. So we are using set move to set our move. We provided 4 parameters, which is all that we need to describe our move. Okay, so we could have another. Okay, let me display this before we build another object. Let's see what this object does, because we set our movie. Let's try to see out. Okay, the movie title. The publishing company. Okay, publishing company, release date. Release date, okay. Then lastly, the duration. Okay, guys. Yeah, that's one long code. Let's try to break it down. Okay, so now we want to display the details of our movie. So our movie title will be object movie 1 dot get name. So now we are getting the name. As we've implemented our method like get name, we want to return the name or the title. Wow, that's one huge mess, but I hope most of you noticed it. But our name is completely different. Like we have a title and we have a name, so we've been interchanging two different names. Okay, now that's a bummer, and I can't re-record the video. We'll just have to work with it. Okay, so I changed the title to name because we used name in almost every implementation. Even when getting there, well, it doesn't really matter, but there's just think of this as the title. So the name is the same thing as the title. Well, while coding, make sure you maintain consistency throughout your attributes name and naming your variables. Well, I'm sure you learned that on PGG1, but yeah, even gurus make mistakes. Okay, so obj movie 1 dot get name, we are getting the name or the title, then the publishing company, the release date, and the duration. So using all these methods, we get the attributes data. So that's how we are able to access the data that's in the class by these public methods. Okay, so let's see if it works. Well, apparently it does. Let's see the output. Okay. So our movie title is Avengers Endgame, and our publishing company, Marvel Studios, release date April 22nd, 2019, duration 181. Well, we could add minutes here, but you know how to display to the console. The important thing is we got the data from the class. So this is all back end, guys. We are working with data, not just in variables, but inside the class, like encapsulated data, meaning we could just make another movie like on the go because we implemented the skeleton or the template or the blueprint of the movie. Okay, now let's instantiate another move. Well, not 2 but 3. Yeah, movie 2 and movie 3. Yeah, so we have these two movies, instantiated objects. So same thing with this. That's what we did. So movie 2, we set the move. Now it's Darkest Minds, different date, their company, duration. Black Widow, as you'll see on the display. Okay, so if we try to display this, as you can see, we'll have like a cluttered code. Like, that's not good programming. So we'll need some kind of a display method on our class which we could just call on the go, and it will display all the details of the movie, because public methods have access to these private members, so we could just take advantage of that. Okay, how do we implement our display method? Like a method that would display like this neat kind of display, but from the class itself. Okay, I see we've already declared the display method, so let's move on to the implementation. Okay guys, I want to show you this neat trick when you are displaying. So there's this library called string stream. Yeah, so string stream, it's kind of like cout combined with strings itself. So using a string, you can save string data, like a whole bunch of text inside just one string. So it's kind of like an object itself, but when you return it as a string. Okay, to be able to use that, you have to include the library. So you'll need the, what is it called? Okay, S3, yeah, S3. I need the S-Stream library. Then here we're just implementing the same way we did. So we are returning a string. So inside the movie class, using our scope resolution, we want to implement the display method. So inside display, we declare or initialize an out movie. So out movie, I named this to show you that this is some kind of an output. So it's a cout, but it doesn't cout to the console, but rather it cout to this variable. So whatever we try to cout, whatever we were outputting to the console here, we can just output into this variable. So this variable will store all this junk. Then we can just convert that to a string to return it. I hope you get this, guys, because if you understand this, then you can display any data, like any class, however you like, without having to repeat yourself. Like, that's the main aim of object-oriented programming, like to use the dry method. Like, do not repeat yourself, and all this code is reusable, as you can see. Let's remove all this. Okay, we have our 3 objects. Okay, so movie object movie of movie class, movie 1, movie 2, and movie 3. We set our movies, so we have 3 movies. Now we want to display those movies. Okay, how do we do that? We just cout, because it's a string. It returns a string. The display returns a string. So we use cout rather than, remember, on functions, if it's a void, you just call the function without cout. So now you need cout because it's a method or a function that returns something. Okay, so for see out, let's be creative. Well, I hope I don't confuse you guys, but we could play around with this. Okay, so our first movie details will have obj movie dot display. So whatever the display is for these objects, we want to show it there. Okay, so for the second movie, same thing. So same thing. The second movie, then the third movie. Okay, let's save and run. Fingers crossed. Oh, look at that, it works. Okay, now here's our program, guys. Our first movie details. Okay, Jaylen's PGG tutorials, meet immaculate. Okay, so our first movie details, the title, Avengers Endgame, Marvel Studios 181. Well, we could add minutes. No, it's the duration. Okay, minutes, to show that that's in minutes. This have us capture. Okay, so Avengers Endgame, 181 minutes, Marvel Studios, second movie, Darkest Minds, 3rd of August 2018, 105 minutes, TSG Entertainment. That movie, Black Widow. Oh, I love that movie. 134 minutes, Marvel Studios. So now guys, I hope you see the power of classes. We defined one template or blueprint, then we were able to make multiple objects. So these whole objects share these attributes, the release date and whatever, but they are all different. So that's what describes an object. So that's the relationship, guys. Using this, you can build any real life object you can think of. Well, you could build a game, you can build a lot. So keep on coding, guys. Please like, share and subscribe.